Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise. Today is Wednesday, it's January 15th, and it's day 467. We're closer than ever to a deal that would free the hostages, that would halt the fighting, that would provide security to Israel, that would allow humanitarian assistance into Gaza for Palestinians who have suffered so terribly over the last 15 plus months, with now a death toll that is at a minimum of 46,000 people. Many are saying that that is 43% or more less than the actual numbers. Biden said some of the words that I just shared in his last foreign policy speech this week. Israeli officials have said negotiations are in the final stages that would begin with the release of 33 hostages as part of the deal. The Hamas delegation in Doha issued a statement after they met with Qatar's Emir, bin Hamad Al Thani. They said that talks are still progressing. Hamas's leader, Mohammed Sinwar, this is the brother of Yahya Sinwar, who was killed by Israel last year. He was considered the mastermind of October 7th. Mohammed Sinwar has reportedly agreed to the Gaza ceasefire deal. So all of the parties are on board, but it's still not being reported that it's a done deal. The Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar told reporters there's progress. It looks better than it ever has. They've thanked the Americans for their huge efforts to secure the hostage deal, and yet it's not being reported that it's finished. Israel and Hamas have approved the broad framework. We know that the Doha negotiations are currently focused on the final issues, the final details. This is according to an Egyptian official. We know that the 33 hostages that would be released have already been agreed to. Their names have been agreed to. We know that the names of the prisoners that would be released from Israeli jails, that has been agreed to. We've heard that Israel has yet to submit maps that would outline where the forces would withdraw from, because there will be a partial withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The US, Qatar, and Egypt have worked for more than a year on these talks. There's been significant pressure from the new Trump appointees to make this deal happen. Steve Witkoff has been putting pressure on the Israeli delegation. We know the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani has put pressure on Hamas officials. If things proceed, not only would there be 33 hostages released, there would be dozens of Palestinians released from Israeli jails. There would then be 42 days of a ceasefire agreement until phase 2 would go into effect. The first phase of hostages would be women, elderly, those who have health issues. And then phase 2 would be remaining hostages. It's believed there could be up to 60 hostages still alive. 100 hostages remain in Gaza, the rest of whom are believed or known to be already deceased. There is also the question of whether or not a 42-day ceasefire would hold beyond the initial phase. So that's a question at hand. We know yesterday there were at least 15 Palestinians killed. There were 6 Palestinians killed in Jenin in the occupied West Bank. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday offered his most detailed picture of plans for a post-war Gaza governance. He gave that in an Atlantic Council speech. He said that Israel should not annex the West Bank. He said it's Israel's choice. It's up to them if they're to have economic ties and normalization with their Arab neighbors. He's never said anything like that before. The UN is preparing to expand Gaza's humanitarian assistance under a potential ceasefire, but there's a lot of uncertainty about what that would mean in terms of border access, the borders to Gaza, whether or not Rafah would be opened, the details around the Philadelphia corridor. We know that Egypt and Israel have agreed to. We also know that Israel has struck its self-designated Gaza humanitarian zone about 100 times since May. BBC reported that in the last day. So that's where things stand in terms of a hostage Gaza ceasefire agreement. Continue to pray. We hope we'll have news any day now, between now and Sunday before Trump's inauguration on Monday. In terms of Syria and the occupied Golan, which was annexed by Israel. That was acknowledged under Trump during his first term as president. Syrian residents have resisted, many of them, not all, but many have resisted becoming citizens of the state of Israel. But Druze who live in the Golan have increasingly grown closer to the state as the Assad regime has faltered. The Druze community that hold Israeli citizenship has doubled in the Golan Heights. Some governments will be boosting funding of humanitarian aid under the Syrian regime. There's new interim rules under Hayat Tahrir al-Shams. The UN World Food Program Director announced yesterday. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, arrived in Damascus yesterday. Well, he will be meeting with officials. And then in Lebanon, the newly appointed Prime Minister, Nawaf Salam, has resigned as a member of the International Court of Justice. In the US, there's a push for a prisoner swap deal with the Taliban that appears deadlocked over Biden's demand that it would include an American who disappeared in Afghanistan in 2022 in exchange for an alleged al-Qaeda associate that's been held at Guantanamo Bay. And an Iranian engineer held in Boston at a detention center could flee to Iran if he's granted bail while awaiting trial on charges related to a deadly drone attack at a U.S. military base in Jordan. Just a couple more updates, some updates on campus protests of pro-Palestinian activities and claims of anti-Semitism. The University of Maine, their trustees rejected a proposal to divest from Israel during an online meeting in mid-December. This was despite pressure from Jewish Voices for Peace. In Colorado, 2 students who have been disciplined by the University of Colorado Boulder for their roles in anti-Israel protests on campus are now suing the school, claiming that their rights have been violated. And in Florida, the hate crimes of Florida report showed a 94% increase on anti-Semitic hate crimes in the state from the year 2022 to 2023. I've been so inspired by many of you from different sectors, lawyers, teachers, people who work from home, who have been engaged in doing so many things to work for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire. So thank you so much for your efforts in that regard as we continue to call and work towards the release of hostages and the ceasefire moving forward. Monday marks Inauguration Day, but also Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And he said that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. And so that's my hope and prayer for today. May peace and justice come quickly in the hours and days ahead. May we continue to pray and work towards that end.